Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Very happy to welcome Pastor Jake Tavisi. You know him from Canton Baptist Temple and a number of ministries around. Jake, you handled that camp for forever.
I did. I was out there almost 10 years at the camp, back from 98 to 09.
Wow. Fun times, really good times.
It was very, very fun times.
Well, not so fun times have been recently when we've all been adapting to a temporary new normal. And in this era of COVID-19, you had some perspectives that we would just love to pick your brain and get your thoughts on it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what prompted you to write an article.
Well, what prompted me, actually, it's amazing. I've been threatening my wife several weeks I was going to do it, and finally she said, stop talking about it and doing it. So I sat down one evening and spent about 4 hours putting my thoughts down, and we've been going through and editing different things out of it. Hopefully it will become a pamphlet as well. I did have a pamphlet that I did years ago when I had cancer and wrote that out. It's been a blessing to others, and I hope this will be the same thing. So I've entitled it A Path Through the Coronavirus, and the prompting of it was during this time of shutdown. The majority of my ministry now is counseling, and so I was getting phone calls from different people with different situations, and they broke down generally into three areas. The first area was family, the second area was loneliness, and the third area was death. And so I put my thoughts down regarding those three issues and came up with a sizable article.
It's hit the church in different ways than other areas of society. For some reason, churches that were trying to pull off a parking lot, some of them anyway, got really ramrodded for doing that. And then in other states, it's just been fine. In Ohio, it hasn't been a deal. But boy, in surrounding states, just for churches to be able to practice social distancing, everybody stay in your car, not unlike going to an outdoor movie, and have a service that way. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I think that we have to be very balanced and aware of what's going on. Number one, the Bible tells us to honor those that are in authority over us, and so that's what we've been doing. I don't think in Ohio anything that our governor has asked us to do has been, quote unquote, threatening our religious rights.
Right.
But there comes a time when, we have to make some of those decisions about what we want to do. So we've been fortunate during this time. We have followed the governor's guidelines through it. We have been working on some of our people minimal hours. Like, for instance, we've had a minister that's been on call every day during this crisis, one day a week. So I've been in the office on Wednesdays, and then the rest of the week working from home, making phone calls and contacting our people and such. And so there's a different person there each day. And today, in May now, we're back as of May 4th, and today's the 5th, that we are going to be full-time at the church again, practicing social distance. So I'm allowed to meet with people again as long as both of us are wearing masks. We keep the 6-foot rule and do those things. So that's the balance. We're trying to, again, move forward through this time. We've been very thankful that we can do the live streaming, which we've done. And then the second thing that I learned as an old dog, I've learned the new trick of Zooming.
Oh, man, yes, we all have.
So my Sunday school class has been Zooming every Sunday.
Nice.
And so we've been reaching more people because people are inviting people, and for some reason it's easier just to turn a Zoom broadcast on rather than get to church. And so it's been very fruitful from that standpoint.
We have said if this were going to happen, it couldn't have happened at a better time technologically. We've really got ways to keep connected that we didn't have before. And many churches are saying that they're seeing growth because, as you say, it's easier just to click on. You're kind of anonymous. It's even better than sitting in the back row. But, you really are able to invite others to join your worship service, and it makes it very non-threatening for others to do so.
Yes, I agree with that. And that's a very positive aspect of it. The challenging aspect of it is the personal touch. And that's what I miss most about it. For instance, I've done several funerals recently, and at the end of the funeral, when you can't have a handshake or a hug, I've gone away, again, doing the things that the family asked me to do at those gravesides, but in my own being felt that I haven't ministered to them properly. So that's been a challenge of it, is that we're now, again, as we get into May here, hopefully we can have more of those face-to-face conversations and get that personal touch back in people's lives.
Let's take these three main areas that you bring up. And since you mentioned funerals, let's begin with death. A lot of families are dealing with either having lost someone to the virus or lost someone during quarantine. And it just puts an added layer on their grief that they're not able to stand and have loved ones come through and just give them a hug. And many people are postponing the actual memorial service, just doing like a private burial and then saying, we'll do a true service and honor this person's life later on. I'd love your take on it.
Well, yeah, again, the issue of calling hours, funeral dinners, family gatherings are not for the deceased, it's for the living, those that remain. And so what's happening in this, and it's going to sort of be a traffic jam, I believe, later on in some areas as well, is first and foremost, at the time of loss currently, families are not able to grieve fully, and they're only grieving partially. They're not getting fully through the grief. And so, again, a graveside that's 10 minutes long or 15 minutes long where I've been told, okay, 10 people can get under the tent at 6 feet apart. The rest of you have to go sit in your cars and roll the windows down. Okay, that's not a closure for a family that is grieving.
Right.
So they're leaving that service not with full closure. And then what's going to happen is down the road, as our health permits us to do so, when we have those memorial services or family remembrances, then we're going to open up a wound that never fully closed. And now we're going to grieve again.
Yeah.
And so it's going to compound the issue of grief. And we're going to see that. So I'm instructing families to work on their grief. And now that I'm able to meet with people again, I'm able to take people hopefully down that journey through grief counseling that I do. And again, when I'm done with grief counseling, death is something that's with us forever. And but it helps. It helps the journey. It gets on the right track, on the right road to recovering through grief. So that's the major issue that I'm seeing with families. It's an incomplete grief now. We'll reopen it again in several months, and then we're going to go through that grieving. And what it does is it compounds it, it piles it upon itself.
Yeah.
And so you could be grieving twice for the same person.
Are there things families can do to prepare to reopen that wound?
Yeah, I think they need to do it very, very carefully. Again, I would suggest some good counsel on that, to sit down and talk about it, open it slowly, even from the standpoint of when they're going to have that memorial service, of sitting down with their pastor and how's this going to look, what are we going to do, how can we help, and sort of leading them through that, and even getting some of those, again, and what I do with my grief counseling, would be saying, okay, this is how the grief's going to hit you this time. This is what you're going to go through, so it sort of prepares them for that second onslaught of grief.
Mm-hmm. And friends, one of the first things you feel compelled to do when you find out someone close to you has passed is provide them with food.
Right.
And we can't do that right now. And tapping 3 little prayer hands on a Facebook page just does not look like that's not going to do it.
No. And again, in the time that we're in now, I talked to someone this morning that said, that they're not accepting food from someone else's kitchen in their home. It was a friend of theirs. They don't want to even take their chocolate chip cookies in, or their fruit platter, or whatever it would be. And so we're not able to help at all. So hopefully when we do this reopening and are able to have some of these memorial services, that those people won't forget. Because one of the issues that we deal with, and I preach a funeral service about this, is that we have family, we have friends, and we have faith. And family and friends, as good as they are, they're temporary, and they get back to their normal lives very quickly. And so what happens is, as delaying these services, some of those people may not be there for those families at that time. And that's going to be very, very hurtful.
Right. Yes. What can we do? What do you, first of all, as a pastor, what do you propose to other pastors right now? And then for the rest of us, what do you propose for the rest of us to do from here on out?
Pastors to their people would be, again, recognizing the loss currently and then continuing to follow up with that person until you have that final memorial service. And again, in our situation where we're able to take people through grief counseling, where we are now, early May, we should be able to meet with them under certain conditions so we can start the process. And then, as I said earlier, when we get to that point of, okay, it's July, we're going to have the memorial service for my aunt who passed away in March.
Yeah.
Give them some guidance as to how they're going to feel again. We're going to be opening up that grief wound, and this is how you're going to feel and what you're going to go through. So those are things. And then friends, very, very important. If you have a friend who's lost a friend or a family member, is make sure that when that memorial service comes up in June, July, August, whenever it will be, that you make the time to go, that it would be just as if it was yesterday. And that's going to be the component that's probably going to be the weakest link through all of this.
Also, I think about the many stages of grieving, and you do come to a point where the memory of the person brings back such wonderful memories that you even start to laugh again. You start to tell the old stories and so forth. Is one of the messages just go ahead and feel the way you feel? Because there might be a feeling of guilt months down the road of gathering to memorialize this person, and you might feel guilty for laughing too much. Is that a weird question?
No, that's a great question, and I think you're right. We can't put off the emotion of grief just to a later date and say, I'm not going to grieve now, and when July comes and we have that service, I'll grieve then.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Our bodies won't allow us to. We're geared and wired as an emotional being. So you have to grieve as you can grieve now. What I've instructed families to do is allow yourself to grieve now. Cry those tears. Say those prayers. Write those memories down. And you're correct that we have to go through that and get to the point where the loss becomes a memory, and then that's when the healing starts. And so that's something that we have to work through. On May 4th is the 7th anniversary of my brother's death, and my brother, surviving brother, and I texted each other about it, and now after 7 years it has become more memory. We bring up something we used to do and have a little bit of a smile about it. It's not the way it was 7 years ago. The pain has changed. And so what's going to happen is if we move forward, we get through that grieving time, there's going to be some memorial services where there may not be tears.
Right.
There'll be more laughter, more stories, more family remembrances, and that's okay.
Yeah, just feel the way you feel. You have
Exactly.
permission.
And you can't carry that guilt with you. You have to put the guilt at the feet of the Lord and handle the guilt in His way.
Let's move to loneliness. This is a big one, and I'm looking at the clock, so we're going to have to talk about it on the other side. We will tell everybody this is a nice time to, don't leave us, but might want to wash your hands and get a drink of water, and then we'll be right back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. And welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Pastor Jake Tavisi, talking about how to get through many of these personal issues during COVID-19. As we go into the next phase of it, it's almost like we've been hibernating for about 7 or 8 weeks. Now we're sort of like waking up with the spring and coming outside and seeing neighbors that we haven't seen in a while. Loneliness has been a big part of this and will continue to be. They've extended the Safer at Home to go through this month. What do you have to say on that?
Well, loneliness is probably the greatest health detriment during this lockdown that we've had, and so we have to work through that as well. Loneliness is something that can overwhelm a person in a very short period of time. And again, as we all know this, you don't have to be by yourself to be lonely. We all know people who can be lonely in a crowded room. Of course, we don't have the crowded rooms right now, but there's people that struggle with loneliness day to day. They can go to work and be lonely. So
Yes.
we have those type of people. And then we have widows and widowers, singles, maybe someone's divorced and they're by themselves. I recommend them to be proactive, using technology that you have, contacting friends and family and neighbors and church members and talking to them. And I think what they're going to find out is when you're lonely and you reach out to somebody, you're going to find someone else who's lonely. And in essence, you've solved two problems, because now you have reached out, you're talking, and you're encouraging, and you're going to get off the phone feeling blessed and encouraged by that other person. So that's the first thing I would do, is you have to reach out when you're by yourself. And I've talked to many people that over the phone and say, I'm glad you called. Thanks for calling me. And they're lonely. And the one lady that I know is a widower, and she said, well, when we're off the phone, you can go down and talk to your wife, but I don't have anyone to talk to. And so, again, I've given those instructions out. Hey, make some phone calls, jot some notes down, call family, whatever you can do. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. Secondly is to limit your intake of media.
Oh, amen.
You know what? And it's good for all of us,
yes.
Not just those that are lonely, but we are all suffering from what I call media overdose, whether it's social media or otherwise. And so take it in limited. Be able to decipher what they're saying, and then saturate yourself with spiritual things, with eternal things. And, what I've done even on my own is, I was listening early on to Dr. Acta and the governor. And then now what I'm doing is there's another radio station that posts on their website the bullet points of their speech each day, and I just go to the bullet points and see what's on there.
Even at the very, very end, at about 3:30, right when they wrap up, if you're listening to the Ohio channel, they do just a wrap-up, so you get all the main things. Yeah, we were there for an hour and a half every single day, like clockwork, taking it all in. And I think in the early days, that was really important. But now it's a lot of repetition.
And if you're lonely and depressed and anxious, it affects you. So, and again, all of those things, I've never seen something that was as fluid as what we've gone through here, especially in the month of April, the end of March. Everything was so fluid every day, and so it changed.
Yes.
And so that bothered a lot of people. It bothers me. I don't like change. And so the Bible tells us Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So I'm going to go to someone who's eternal, someone who never changes. And that's how I'm going to get my balance and perspective back and open up the scriptures and read the Bible. I was talking to someone recently who has taken in bits and pieces. Some of what they heard was biblical, but on the other hand, it wasn't. And they were trying to tie a biblical perspective in with something that was unbiblical. And I said, well, if you're going to be biblical here, you have to be biblical over here as well. And so we have to maintain a balance to all of those things. And we do need to know what's going on. We do need to be informed. But there gets to a point of saturation on media that we need to get away from it. And so, again, I'm talking to people about reading your Bible. Listen, many, many times, when I talk to people, wow, I don't have time to read my Bible. Well, you do right now.
That's
you're
right.
Not working, you're home. So get into the Word of God.
Yes.
Take a little bit longer in your prayer life, and maybe read a hymn or sing a hymn or a praise song to the Lord and praise Him for what's going on. And understand that if you have a personal relationship with God, you're never alone.
That's right.
And that's something that we have to really, really grasp and find ways of interacting with people. I'm the kind of person, when I'm done with my daily quiet time, I'm ready for people. So I've been thankful for the Zoom technology. I've been able to still teach and preach the Word of God like I have. But you know what? In the end, it helps me as much as it helps them. I've interacted with a larger group, and so it's been a good thing to do. And then another thing is use the technology that you have to FaceTime or find other good biblical devotional sites and different things like that you can seek to change your perspective on what's going on.
If someone would have told us 2 months ago that we were about to have the gift of being able to go on a personal retreat for the next 60 days, no, I wouldn't have believed it, for one thing. But
it's amazing. My wife said the other day, when this first happened, she goes, you're on sabbatical right now. And of course, my denomination we don't do sabbaticals. And she said, you're actually on sabbatical right now. And so it was a thought. So I've done some things. Both of us have extended our devotional time during the day and have done some other reading and different things like that. Of course, the time I put to put this article together was during that time as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, we've been given a very unique opportunity, and we do not need to waste it.
We don't want to waste it. And I think it was towards the end of that I started realizing it. This isn't going to be forever now. How, Lord, lead me. How should I use this time today? And I wish I would have said that, all those days ago instead of just, trying a new recipe or a new eyeliner.
Right.
Just all the playing that we did. But I'm going to miss this pace, Pastor Jake. This is a wonderful pace, and it's one my life is not used to. I like it.
It was really great the other day. My wife and I were out for a walk on a Sunday afternoon, and it was a beautiful, warm day, and people were out walking, social distancing and such. But at the end of it, they were going to a local establishment, getting food to go, and they were actually tailgating with proper social distancing in parking lots. It was so neat to see people interacting like that. And I think you're right, Susie. I think part of this, we start looking at why did the coronavirus come? Why did this happen? And we always want to look, as Christians, we want to look at, well, God's judging or this is going on. When in reality, he may have put the brakes on us as well.
Yeah, gave us a wonderful gift.
Slow down. I read an article recently that talked to us as pastors, now that we have slowed down a little bit, minister to your neighborhoods. Get to know your neighbors better. Get to know your family better, because sometimes we can put those 60-plus hours in a week, and yes, it's focused on our church family or outreach, but we neglect neighborhoods and we neglect our family at times as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's going to be some things that we take from this and we make it a habit that we would not have ordinarily done. Since you mentioned family, let's move on to family. So what does this all mean to families?
Well, family, there's a very interesting dynamic with family. And so I look at a couple of different things with the family that we have to examine a little bit. So I look at, first of all, that we can spend too much time together with family. One of the issues first that we have to look at with family is this idea, again, it falls into two categories: separation, too much separation, and too much togetherness. The too much separation has occurred because our society now, because both parents working, there's more dependence upon parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents to watch kids. And so now that's been taken away in some areas. Yes. We have had generational separation in multi-generational families. Children, great-grandchildren aren't seeing their grandparents or great-grandparents. So that's been an issue. Of course, the 65 and over have been deemed vulnerable during this pandemic.
Right.
And so it's created this issue of separation. And so during that, again, I recommend using technology to the fullest extent: FaceTime, videos, phone calls, and texting. Mm-hmm. A picture really is worth 1,000 words. Mm-hmm. And then also, I think it's important to even the archaic handwritten letter or note would be something that a family member would enjoy, appreciate, and actually it will be with them for all of posterity. So
something to keep.
I think those are very important. And finally, lifting up our loved ones that we're separated from and praying for them every day. So our first component is, man, we got separation. We're not together anymore. We miss everybody. And then the second part of it is too much time together. Now, you might think, Pastor Jake, you've lost your mind. How can we spend too much time together? But we're spending too much time. The husband and wife dynamic, first of all, is vital as spouses to spend time together. We need to love and care for and support our spouses, but we also need space.
Yes.
When I'm off for any kind of extended time with my wife, I tend to, let's say, get in her way sometimes, and I call it a very harmless form of harassment. But she has a very common phrase that she uses: "This is why men go to work every day," and she's right. And so some of the phone calls that I've been getting recently are from families who have spent too much time together, husband and wives. Even in recent years, some that work in, like, say, construction that's seasonal. They'll call me in late February, early March with marital problems. The husband's been laid off since November. They've been together so I tell them, listen, go volunteer somewhere, go to the library, get out of the house, separate a little bit, and it makes it healthy. So that's something that we need to do. What we have even practiced in our own home is I've got a small library study at home, and I'm spending a lot of time there. My wife is down in our dining room that looks outside, and she's writing and reading and doing things there. And then we come together at lunchtime or whatever and visit and be with each other. So we've taken advantage of both aspects of that. So that's very, very important. So it's documented over time that serious disagreements, squabbles, fights, and even abuse take a higher toll on marriages during situations of lockdown and other stressful situations. So it's just like a boxing match. Sometimes we got to go to our separate corners and think about the positive attributes of our spouse and come back together and go forward from that point.
So make that man cave and that she shed.
Yes, and use it and enjoy it. Now, the other issue regarding family that I'm getting a lot of phone calls is with the children. We're homeschooling. The kids are home all day. And they, again, tend to be getting under their mother's or father's feet and having a lot of arguments and fights between siblings and all of those kind of things. So, again, the key is, and I even had to do this for myself, working from home, not lose the sense of the day. In other words, the strategy of the day. In other words, getting up when the weather's been conducive, we've gone for a walk, come home, then you shower, get dressed, and I go to work, even though I'm walking down the hallway.
Right.
I'm going to work, but I've established a routine.
Nice, yeah.
And so as much as kids complain about routine, kids love routine. So it's the same way at home. Get your kids up in the day, a good breakfast, age-appropriate chores. Everybody helps. Everybody pitches in. And then schoolwork. You have to do it every day. Don't wait. I know some people, they've called me, well, we just wait till Friday and we get it all done on Friday and they turn it in. You know what? You got to do it every day. And have the kids understand. One family told me that we do school in the morning from 9 to noon, and then the rest of the day is recess. So
nice.
That's okay. That's a good thing. And that brings me to another point: is our kids do need some daily exercise and activity, and make the most of what's available to them. And then again, game time, family videos, home videos, movies that are appropriate need to be taken care of. And then finally, when God has put those brakes on us again that we talked about, parents, mom and dad, individually and together need to have a spiritual time, and then there needs to be time for the family. And if there's a dad at home, dads take the lead. Everyone participates. If you're a single parent, single mom, then you have that responsibility that's been placed on you to do the same. And again, do age-appropriate personal devotions with your kids. And then finally, again, prayer. Praying together as spouses and family. And then in home, this is a good thing that we can still do. In our homes, we can still give lots of hugs.
Yes.
And so that's something that we don't want to forget about and lose. So that's, for the family, those are some dynamics that we definitely have to work through.
Wise words. Where can we find the article, Jake?
Well, right now, if you want an article, you can email me at jtavissi@cantonbaptist.org. And then what I'm going to be doing, Lord willing, is this week it's going to be put into a pamphlet form, as I mentioned earlier.
Great.
And they can call and request a pamphlet at the church at Canton Baptist Temple, and then we'll get it out to you. And we're trying some other outlets as well, possibly having it sent to some funeral homes and other places like that where I know I've talked to several funeral homes, and they're dealing with all of these family issues and death issues on a daily basis, and they need some help as well. So I'm trying to disseminate it that way as well. And if area churches, anyone from an area church that's listening, if they want some of them, they can just call Canton Baptist Temple and ask for Pastor Jake, and we'll get those mailed out to you as well. This is not something we're trying to keep in-house, but we want to get out and disseminate in our community.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Pastor Jake Tavisi, thank you so much for bringing this to our community.
Susie, thank you so much for having me once again. God bless you.